Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the December meeting of the Oregon Law Commission. Sandy, would you mind taking the roll, please?
Sure. I'll start with the judges since they were all here early. And I want to make sure, Judge Lageson, we spoke to you one time. Is that the correct way to say your name?
Yes.
Okay. Judge Lageson is here. Judge Bouchon?
Here.
Justice Duncan?
Here.
Chair Ruckles Pearson?
Here.
Professor Gary?
Here.
Valerie Sasaki?
Here.
Fred Boss?
Here.
And then not present currently. So we do have a quorum. Now not in attendance, Dean Golini, John Perry, Krista Old-Eshelman, Senator Przanski, Rep. Croft, and then we have our vacancies, which are currently stand at 2, which is one from the bar, which I'm working on, and one from the House, which I'm also working on. And with the new House leadership coming into play in January, I will work in earnest to get that. And we should have, by our next meeting, which hopefully will be the one where we'll have a bill to approve, we will hopefully have a couple new members.
Great.
So
the first item on our agenda is the staffing and search update for someone to replace Sandy. Sandy, you want to update us on that?
Yeah, just a little bit. As everything at the university system, it is going slowly, and especially very slowly. If any of you have ever been a hiring situation at the University of Oregon, it is commonplace. This one even more so because the law school had a lot of backlog of hiring needs coming out of the pandemic. They've actually recently made a lot of hires, which is really great for the law school. They've recently hired a new tenure, and Susan knows that, but actually quite a few. They've recently hired a new tenure track faculty member on the criminal side. They have recently hired new program directors for several of the clinics. Dean Golini is here, as well as other things. So we were sort of in line. I've been working closely with Ray Sykes, who is the Associate Dean for Finance Administration, about where we are in line. We are going to be in January. So we're getting there. At that point, it's just going through the search process, which Debbie is going to help admin. And again, it's one of these that it's going to take a very specific applicant to fill the search, as it did last time. It was a search last time that actually, unfortunately, it failed a couple times. So learning those lessons, and when I got it, I'm trying to be very intentional about it. I'm working with folks on campus to try to reach out specifically to candidates. It's a very self-directed position. It's one that has coordination with the university, but no supervision system in place other than Professor Gary, and then when Professor Gary leaves, will be her successor there. So it's just one that takes a person who hopefully has some significant legislative experience, some coordination experience. We want to find the right person, but we're in line. Everything should be approved, and I hope to have a more specific report on that next time, but that's where we are.
Sandy,
and at this,
I think it would be helpful if you could get the job description.
Sure.
I assume it hasn't been finalized yet since we haven't begun the search. If you could circulate it to the commissioners, and then commissioners, if you have any input on that, if you could provide that back to me, I think it would be helpful to at least make some suggestions. I realize that it's within UO's purview to hire for that position, but since we're the group that is going to be working the most with the position, I think at least a look at that might be helpful. And I also don't know whether you've had an opportunity to discuss with Ray whether any of the commissioners might be able to have a participating role in.
Yeah, very much so. They appreciate that. And once we get the search going, I was calling. I hope Professor Gary will be willing to help with that process, being internal at UO. But I would appreciate another member of the commission being a part of the committee. I was thinking it could be the chair, but it also could be somebody else. So if you're interested in either being a part of the committee, which would be a little more time intensive, or less time intensive, just being part of interviews, and they can be Zooms, you don't have to go anywhere, that would be appreciated. And I know the law school would appreciate that as well.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful. The other question that I had was, how wedded is the university to the person having to be on campus in Eugene on a daily basis? Because I think that's
Yeah,
gonna potentially limit our pool.
I think you brought it up in an interesting way. I had that discussion. My actual suggestion was that it be a fully remote position, or at least one base that could be based in Salem or Portland, just due to the realities. They would rather have it be based in Eugene, though I can tell you there will be significant flexibility for remote work. So I think that if we get the right candidate, I will say this, I think that there's a strong enough argument to make the case to the university that I don't think it's out of the question, though I know their preference is that it would be based in Eugene. But I don't think that's a closed issue at this point.
Well, I think there's a difference between being based in Eugene and having to be present in Eugene regularly. For example, my work is based in Salem and I'm almost never there.
I think we're sort of on the same page, and it's certainly something I would advocate for.
Good. Any questions or comments from the commissioners about the upcoming search?
No, I just wanted to say I'd be happy to help in whatever way makes sense.
Thank you, Valerie.
And of course, that goes for me too.
And I'll get that. I'm sorry.
I did
Judge
want to
Michelle.
say that, U of O does have a campus in Portland, and
Yes.
there is, the market, the job pool in Portland may be a bit stronger. So if the U of O U of O campus in Portland is a possibility, that might be helpful.
Well, and Judge Michelle, you bring up a great point. Not only does U of O have a campus in Portland, U of Law has a program in Portland and has space, and actually is going to have new space, which once they move on to the new campus in North Portland. So now that plan has not been finalized yet, but the law school will be moving its program there. So I have brought up that point, and that's part of the reason why I think it's still in discussion. But I will feedback from the commission that would support that, I think would be helpful as well.
Where in North Portland is the new campus going to
So
be?
I don't know if you've heard this, those in Portland, the University of Oregon purchased the old Concordia campus.
Oh.
That deal is finished. They are currently doing work on the facilities. And the plan is this is based off a large donation from Steve Ballmer with the primary purpose to build a new institute for children behavioral studies. But it's also being used it will be used to house all of Portland's programs eventually. There's a lot of dealing with the situation that's currently in Old Town and with that building, which the university owns. And a lot of retrofitting needs to be done on the Concordia campus, but the University of Oregon now does own that property, and the plan is to move all UO programs to that property, which is pretty extensive, actually. I mean, it's a full campus within the next few years.
That's great. I had heard about the particular program, but I didn't know that the rest of UO's stuff would be moving there. So that's great. Another thing I'd like to ask of the commissioners is that start thinking about people that who might be good candidates, whether they live in Oregon or don't live in Oregon. I think this could be a great opportunity for the right person. I think it'd probably be important to have someone who has the ability to learn or the experience in legislative work for sure. But this is a great opportunity, and having done some high-level job searches in the past, so many of the great applicants come because people hear about it, not just that they hear about it through word of mouth, but that somebody tells them, I think you would be a good applicant for this. And I'd really like to see us utilize our networks to make sure that we're getting good candidates from a variety of different backgrounds who can really help us move this commission in a really positive direction.
And PK, that's a great point. When I send out the draft job description, I'll also send out some talking points that I would come up with to talk about what the job is actually like. I think it's one of those, just to be frank, I think the pay is going to be less than a lot of folks who are qualified for this may expect, but it does come with full UO benefits, which are really good and can really assist someone at different stages in their career. So, and it's substantial pay, but I think, it's one of those, depends what the expectations are. But no, I think it's I agree, PK, and I will send out information to be really clear about that.
That's great. Well, it appears, and we'll talk about this further in our agenda, but it appears we're going to need to have a meeting sometime in January. So
January,
if we
February,
can-
yeah.
Yeah. I think probably January, talking to Valerie yesterday.
Okay,
And so, let's put this item, on the agenda.
absolutely.
For that, so we can get some feedback on the job description.
And I will get that out to everyone, the kind of full description of how to help with the search within the next several days. You know, I'm happy to do that.
Terrific. Welcome, Dean Delaney. Hi. Anything further on the staffing or director search
That's it. Oh, sorry, from my perspective, sorry.
from any of the commissioners? Okay, hearing none. I see Representative Croft is joining us. Welcome. Our next, and I'm just going to take the chair's prerogative here to talk about the chair and vice chair election at the same time. As some of you know, my tenure on the commission is unclear. Latest update on that is that I did touch base with the governor's office. My initial assumption had been that as the governor's appointee, my appointment would end with her term. But I've received instruction from the governor's office that I can be considered a holdover appointment, subject to I would be serving, of course, at the pleasure of the governor, and there's going to be a new governor, so she may have in mind someone else to join the commission. So with that in mind, while I very much want to continue my work with the commission, not having that be certain, I'm going to have to step down as chair. I would like to, I don't know what the appropriate procedure is for this, so if someone has a different procedure in mind, let me know. But I have heard from Valerie Sasaki that she is willing to serve, and I heartily endorse that. I think that Valerie would be an excellent chair. She's done tremendous work with the LLC group, as we'll hear a little more about already. And we've had some discussions about what the work entails. I've also told Valerie that I am willing to stay on, if elected, as vice chair, and to assist her with the duties of the position. And if for some reason my appointment were continued, I could see Valerie and I working together as some sort of co-managing team to get this place moving as we get a new director. So I'm not sure whether it's appropriate for me to make that nomination or not, unless anybody has concerns about the procedure. I probably will suggest that to the group, and also throw it out for discussion about any other thoughts that others might have about chair and vice chair moving forward. Professor Gary.
Don't know. I've forgotten where the raise hand function is. I think that's terrific. I really appreciate Valerie's being willing to step up to that. I think she will be terrific, and the two of you together will be awesome. So I heartily support this this slate.
Thank you. Any further comments? Well, I would like to support Valerie for an additional reason, which is that she's a very accomplished baker. So I'm hoping to have group meetings at which she can display that talent. I'm just nominating you for that, Valerie.
That's okay, I'll take it.
Any further comments or nominations? Feel like I need to wait just in case. Okay, well, hearing nothing, I don't know if do we need a motion?
I think that with the nomination has occurred, and since there is no further discussion, we can move directly to a vote.
Okay, let's vote on them separately, just so we don't have any log rolling here. All those in favor of Valerie as chair of the Oregon Law Commission, please say aye.
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 Hi.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Congratulations, Valerie.
Thank you.
Woohoo.
Congratulations.
And all those in favor of me as vice chair, please say aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Great. Thank you, everybody. Valerie and I are really looking forward to working together. We both like whiskey and baked goods. It'll be great.
if nothing else, the meetings will be interesting.
That's right. They will be very interesting. Thank you for that. In order for Valerie to demonstrate all the amazingness that she is, we're going to talk about the LLC project. I do want to preface this by saying that we had very much hoped to have a proposal here for the group to vote on at this point. That has not been possible for the reasons that Valerie will explain, but she and I know John DiLorenzo are working hard on clearing the issues, and we're hoping to have a proposal for you by the beginning of January. And I think that this is not indicative of the quality of the proposal or of any concerns that are likely to derail a bill. It's simply a process of herding the cats, and I think it's a good thing to herd the cats before the session starts rather than during the session. So I think this is time well spent. So Valerie, I'll turn it to you for the details.
Sure. So I think after we met last time, we got a draft back from Legislative Council, or had we gotten the first draft back? I can't remember. Anyhow, the first draft that we got back from Legislative,
We had not.
yeah, it was pretty problematic. And so there was a lot of question about whether we were going to be able to move that forward at all. But, you know, John really did great work in coordinating with Dexter and Legislative Council's office, and was able to get them to revisit the bill. And they prepared a bill that I think is substantially where we are going to go with this. We then had some conversations with Department of Justice, which hadn't been involved up to this point that much. But, you know, I think that was a very positive discussion. It went much more smoothly than I had been afraid it would. And they had a couple of concerns and a couple of minor points that they wanted to raise with respect to the new bill that Legislative Council had put together. So what we're looking at now is this second bill that we will circulate to you, I think in the next week. You know, I think we're at a point where we can send it out to you. There's just some fine tuning that needs to happen. And I think it's okay to give you a preview of it before that fine tuning happens. And so we'll have the bill, because there's a lot of issues about legislative intent, right? And is the intent to conform with the revised Uniform LLC Act? And so I think where things went off the rails with the initial draft was they were trying to have the substance of the act and then also have the integration of the act with all of the other chapters of the ORS, because of course it's very integrated. So, you know, so I think what we're looking at is we're looking at having a substantive bill that is, you know, really going to be the revised Uniform LLC Act with changes that have been made principally to reflect the legislature's statement about shell corporations, which was the most important LLC Act that has come around in the last 15 years. So, you know, so I think we're looking at that act as a substantive act, and then a companion bill or a tag-along bill that will be the integration part of things. And so PK and I were talking yesterday about, you know, some of the minor wordsmithing might actually end up happening in that second, the integration bill, with the idea that, you know, we want to express the intent and have the legislature express the intent that, you know, this really is designed to conform with the revised Uniform LLC Act. So, you know, so I think we're at a really good spot. I expect that we'll get a briefing package out to you in probably the next week and a half. So you'll definitely have it before the December holidays start. And I know nothing says holidays like a big package of LLC Act. So, so we'll get that out to the commissioners so you can take a look at it. Along with a link to the presentation that Michael Walker did on, you know, with the business law section. So Michael was a member of the work group, and then he was also, because he is secretary of the business law section this year, was asked to do a presentation for their annual CLE on sort of the big policy issues and the big changes and similarities as between our current LLC law and the new act. So I think it's very helpful, and it's frankly much more interesting than reading, 200 pages of PDF files, which you can also do, and I would encourage you to do, but it's a good stage setting tool. So I think what we need to do now is we need to have a conversation with John, and we've been trying to coordinate with him, and then coordinate with Dexter and Legislative Counsel's office about what is the next step and how do we make sure that people who have expressed substantive concerns have those concerns addressed, and so that everybody is happy with the final work product, or at least as minimally unhappy as possible with the final work product. There's a question, one of the things that, and Susan, this may be interesting to you as well, that the new act is going to do is it's going to permit the formation of limited liability company nonprofit organizations. And so, and that IRS has really been going in that direction. And so it's good that we would have a tool to do that. But of course, whenever you implicate something as large as the Nonprofit Act, then we start to have to say, well, okay, how do we integrate this into Secretary of State's system? How do we make sure that DOJ has enforcement visibility to those entities? So all the moving pieces, we need to think about the moving pieces on that. But the woman from Charitable Activities that we were working with was really great and had some good ideas. So we'll just continue to sort of noodle that. But as you get it, if you have questions about anything, definitely feel free to reach out. I'll have my cell phone number in the package that we send out, just so you can reach me whenever it's convenient for you, to try and address any questions you may have.
And again, I think the idea is to bring this up again in a meeting in January, so that we have the commission sign off before the legislative session.
Exactly. Yeah, I think as far as a procedural approach to this, I don't think that we're going to pre-session file it, or if we are, we're going to pre-session file a placeholder. And Sandy would know more about that than I do, but I think the actual substance of the bill is going to move forward in January after this group has an opportunity to review it and comment, because we want to make sure that you're okay with it, because it is the work of this group. So.
And Valerie, just comment on that. We've done this before with other bills that have had this is a unique situation, or what's happened with Legislative Counsel, but I really appreciate, especially Dexter, his response and really helping with this situation, because it could have, Valerie's speaking it where I think we really are, but this really could have been derailed with that first draft. And we're really, really appreciative of Legislative Counsel for stepping in. So that is okay. It will probably be a placeholder bill. It's something we actually did with a couple of the probate bills that were a little bit more controversial and needed some more work on it a couple sessions ago. So we have precedent in doing this, and we should be in good shape.
I think the other issue that, in addition to the Legislative Counsel issue that we're working through, is that my understanding, Valerie, is that maybe Department of Justice was not as involved early on as, at least we had hoped they would have been. And I'm not sure where the miscommunication happened. Fred, I know this was before your time with the commission, but I'm hopeful that as we move forward with some of our additional work, we can try to lean on you to help us reach out to the right sections of DOJ to make sure that, we're getting everyone's feedback at the time when it'll be most useful for everyone.
Yes, more than happy to help with that.
Really appreciate that.
And we should probably have some offline discussions too with the key DOJ folks. The proposal that's sitting before the commission right now is the Corporate Act, which is going to be another pretty heavy lift. So we want to make sure that we aren't trying to address comments at the 11th and a half hour, and that people really have a chance to ruminate on getting the right answer for everybody. But I think that, this is an opportunity for us to just improve communication in that respect.
Right. No
Agreed.
one wants to address things after the train has left the station. Everybody wants to be in at the
Exactly.
beginning.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, I think that we, while this is happening later than I think we had hoped it would, I'm still really heartened about the bill, and I'm and all the great work that has been done. And while we are getting, comments from DOJ, I want to reaffirm those are useful comments. But they are also, they do not appear to me, at least, to be comments that are directed at the main substance of the issue. They are, comments that we can incorporate as we go on, which is, very fortunate. And they're all great comments. And I'm just
Well,
really
and-
glad that we can get people involved,
Right, and-
before we're doing it at the legislature.
Yeah, and PK, we're also, I think that we're extremely fortunate to have Cheryl Hamstra giving us feedback on this, because she was, she understands the legislative process, of course, but she was also very involved in the Shell Corporation Act, which is, as I said, is really the main point of deviation from ROLCA, that we are moving forward with this bill. So having her perspective on things has been really valuable.
It's great.
Yeah, I spoke with our folks. They're very positive about what we've been doing. I don't think there's gonna be any issues.
Fantastic. Well, I think this again speaks well for the structure of the commission, right? That we have input from everybody who's well, not everybody who's important, but everybody who is in the main levers. And so really grateful for your help on that, Fred.
And
Sandy?
PK, I just want to say one thing that I've learned from this particular bill's process that, I sort of took for granted from some other processes that I'd seen, which I will pass along to whoever replaces me, is that I think we get agencies who come to us and are very willing to give staff members time. But I think what my position needs to do is really be upfront at the beginning about what that time commitment looks like and how helpful their continued participation in that process will be. I don't actually blame DOJ for this, that their members were appointed to the group very early and were in touch with me about their time constraints. But I think learning from this as we go to future projects, especially ones that are going to have specific agency concerns, we just have to make sure that whoever is going to be serving in that group as that appointment is going to be able to at least be at the majority of our meetings, as well as legislative council. So it's just, I think this has been a good learning process for the commission and something I'm certainly ready to pass along to whoever's coordinating in the future.
And I do want to say that, Jamie Weddle was Secretary of State's office, and Victoria and the folks over at Revenue, really added a lot of value, because the goal here is to just come up with a project, the end result that's best for the state of Oregon. And so what would someone's expectations be of the bill, and what are the enforcement concerns that DOJ is likely to run into? I think would be great to be able to address a little sooner. So
Yeah. Thanks for those kind words about Jamie. She's incredibly conscientious and knowledgeable.
she's great.
I'm
Yeah,
really enjoying working with
incredibly
her.
helpful.
Jamie's now been a key member of 2 work groups. So she's put in a lot of work with the commission.
That's great. Yeah, and just to pick up on I can't remember, maybe you said this, Sandy. None of this is about blame. This is about just sorting out our process so that we can make sure we have a smooth process in the future. And I'm glad we're all on board with that. Any other questions or comments about the LLC bill and its progress? Okay, hearing none. I know Krista is not here. Sandy, is there anything that we should update about oh, wait, Justice
Duncan's here. I could probably
Beg
short
your pardon.
update.
Sure.
Want to give us a quick update on your work?
Sure, I can give you a quick update. So we have our larger work group, and within that group, we have a smaller drafting group. And we are working on revisions to the multiple chapters that concern justice, municipal, small claims cases within those 2 courts, and how you appeal from those courts to the circuit courts. Our small drafting group is meeting every few weeks, reviewing a legislative concept that we have from Legislative Council on the Justice Court provision, the Justice Court chapters, and the plan is to use those as a model for the municipal court chapters. We're going to continue to meet with that small group, and I think we'll have a handful of meetings left to get our draft ironed out to take to our larger group. And then once the larger group is okay with the draft, we will be soliciting input from the organizations for the justice and municipal court judges. We have members of those organizations on our work group, but also trying to get as much feedback from the judges across the state in those courts about how this process will, the the proposed process, how it will work with our existing procedures. We're just trying to make things as simple as possible for the courts themselves, and then for the litigants, almost all of whom are pro se, trying to navigate that transition from the local courts to the circuit court. So we're still drafting. I think we'll be drafting for a while. But as I've said at the last meeting, our plan is not to have something for this legislative session. So I think we're on track to continue to draft the bill and then roll it out for feedback and continue to work on it.
That's terrific. Thank you. Any questions about the progress of the Municipal and Justice Court Appeals project? Okay, hearing nothing, I'm going to skip over the 5th agenda item since we've already covered Vice Chair. The last agenda item is new program ideas and whether anyone has or has heard of them. Sandy, did you want to introduce that?
It was just, I wanted to put that to tag along just to say that we are at the point, especially when we get staffed as we look into the next year. I think we do have another pretty extensive business law project, which we would need to approve, but I think it's ready to go. But otherwise, we've had some concepts come through where people have checked in, but nothing has been sent to us. We had a couple family law things which were initially presented to us. We actually did some research on them, but never came to fruition. So we're you know, if you hear from folks in your different constituencies of issues that could use the commission's certain style of work that can be patient, that can be very thorough, that can be technical, and we think we're at the time where we could at least start considering those, especially now with a new chair and vice chair structure and new staffing. And I think we're at and by the way, our budget seems to be in good shape. I checked in recently with our folks from OJD, and it's certainly in place to stay at a point where we'll be able to continue forward for at least the next 2 years. So it's a good time to think about new projects, but there have been none other than the business law project actually submitted to the commission.
I received not a formal proposal, but a juicy suggestion about a project that the that the Law Commission might want to take on related to the governor's emergency powers. It has come up throughout our pandemic situation and with wildfires and such. There's been some litigation. There's also been some use of the governor's emergency powers, something that is not often used and might need some fine tuning in light of recent experience. And because it is a difficult topic perhaps for a legislature to address, but is something that could use some updating. It's been suggested to me that that's something the commission might want to take up. So exactly what the scope of that proposal is a little bit unclear, but could maybe put that in your brains and let it rattle around and see what you think of it as we move forward. I'd also like to solicit from folks thoughts for January, perhaps, about who might want to be part of our program committee. We're going to have to reconstitute that as we start thinking about new proposals and vetting new proposals. So if you're interested in helping to shape where we go with that and what proposals get brought to the full commission, please let me or Chair Sasaki know. Anyone else heard about any interesting proposals, ideas?
I just want to say that the governor's emergency power is a wonderful proposal and very timely, and having wallowed around in it for the last couple of years, I think that some clarity would be very helpful for everybody that's involved.
We now have the wisdom of experience, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yes.
And PK, I just wanted to say that I've had some conversations with practitioners about some very interesting subjects that in the course of those conversations, I thought and said that this might be a good subject for the Law Commission to address. And in those conversations, I was told, not quite yet. We're not quite ready yet. So once I get the okay, I may have something to put on our plate, but I don't have the okay, and they asked me not to raise these issues yet. So I don't even feel comfortable describing them, but other than to say, working on it.
Good. Well, it's good to hear those things are there, and we're not quite ready for them either. So it sounds like it's good to have things in the hopper.
And this is not something new, but we pre-pandemic started working on the heirs property project. It
Yeah.
got derailed, and I'm just curious whether, we're going to be able to pick that up again.
So it is certainly, it's been approved. We're sort of without a chair on that project at this point, but that has certainly not been forgotten.
That may be something for a program committee to take up, is to start thinking about. And I know that it has been our hope and our practice to have chairs be someone on the commission. I don't suppose that's essential, but even the model that we did with the LLC group, I think, has worked well too, where there's a knowledgeable practitioner who is serving as in a chair, co-chair role with someone from the commission, in this case, Valerie and John, to make sure that the commission's way of doing things and our limits and our role is, well understood by the committee, as well as having that programmatic expertise. So I'll probably be asking again at some point for, others who might be interested in chairing or co-chairing committees. Even if you don't have the particular expertise, we can match you up with a committed practitioner who understands the area. Any other thoughts, Valerie?
Question, Sandy, is there a list of proposals that are like the heirs property project that have been sort of floating around that there's some information about, but we need to evaluate?
I can get that to you. There's only, the heirs property is the only one that's actually been approved by the commission, which is still out there, that hasn't, a work group hasn't been fully formed. I'm happy to provide you a list of sort of the others, which I've never received a full formal proposal on, but have come to me over the last few years with the ideas. I'm happy to get that to you.
I think that would be really helpful, and if you wouldn't mind sending them to the group.
Sure.
Because I think, we've been in such a disruptive period in the last few years. I think it would be really nice to be able to regroup and recenter, our understanding of where we are on things.
And one of them was actually brought forward by Chris Olvold-Eshelman, which was an interesting concept, which I'll certainly send you. But yeah, I'm happy to do that, Valerie.
Great, thank you so much, Sandy.
Some of the work I'm hoping to have a reconstituted program committee work on is, once again, looking at our criteria for accepting projects. But one of the sort of rules that I've always kept in my mind is that the Law Commission is not really here to advance any particular policy goal. The Law Commission is here about the workability of law and the structure of government and the updating and harmonizing of law. So, for example, in the governor's emergency power context, I thought to myself when this issue was raised, whether it would be appropriate for our group, because we don't want to be carrying any particular policy torch. But I think that the idea of balancing emergency powers with separation of powers generally, and making that clear in light of recent experience, is a project that is well within our range. So sort of keep that in mind as you're out there in the universe talking with people about projects, that we need to not only tackle a particular subject, but we also need to be able to bring the commission's lens to it rather than being used as a tool to advance a particular policy goal.
Right, and I wonder, PK, too, one thing that a reconstituted programs group could consider is whether some education of the bar about what this group does would be valuable, because I do think that when we've had discussions with folks, there's confusion about the National Uniform Laws Commission compared with, our group. And I think it's a really great process. And I think that we'd get some really fantastic ideas if people understood what it did a little bit better.
Yeah, that's something to think about. I think that could be a good project for a program committee, is not just intake, but also outreach.
Yeah.
When you mentioned that, the idea that came to my mind was maybe even getting something in the bar bulletin
Sure.
about it.
And maybe
Mrs.
PK
Duncan?
and Valerie, if I could, I know that all of the sections of the bar will, they're invited every year by the bar to make any proposals. And so maybe Susan Gravy or other people at the bar who are
Yeah.
hearing from the sections about proposals might know of some proposals that might be too big for a section or not appropriate for the bar,
Yeah.
but might be something that would fit within the work of the commission.
That's a really great idea.
And just a second, I'm due a check-in with Susan. So I think that Valerie, if you want to join me, if you want to schedule something at some point in the next little while to talk to Susan about that, that might be a great idea.
Yep.
Good timing.
Great. Anything else on future program proposals? I think it's great we're getting these in the hopper so that we'll have them when we're fully staffed and ready. Okay. That's our last agenda item. I just want to add a quick note about scheduling. We have had the very good suggestion in the past that we schedule these meetings out a little bit. So I know I've already talked to Valerie and Sandy about this. Debbie, I think you may have heard of it as well. I'm hopeful that we can send out a doodle poll for scheduling not only a January meeting, but also quarterly meetings throughout the year. If we don't need them, we'll just cancel them, but it's always good to have the time held on people's calendars.
I pretty much live and die by my calendars, so
Yes,
I need this.
especially this time of year, as anybody who works in the tax area is always super busy near the end of the year. Okay, any other topics for the good of the order? Okay.
PK, I just want to say thank you for remaining as chair through your job transition and through the pandemic, which certainly changed the dynamics of the commission quite a bit. This was a group that only had in-person meetings forever, and worked on, during the pandemic, we were able to be pretty nimble and pass a couple of things that were very related to needs at the time, and I was really proud of that. I know you're staying with commission, but you also, when you first came on, you chaired one of the more difficult groups we've had in recent years, and really appreciate that too. And just want to say, you're only the second chair of the Oregon Law Commission, and for you to have kept it after, Lane had stewarded it for such a long time, and for you to provide this leadership, keep it on track. We felt a little sidetracked, but we always kept our mission focused. We still have bills that are moving forward, and I think you deserve a lot of credit. So I just want to say on behalf of staffing, thank you for your time as chair, and you're really appreciated.
Oh, thanks, Sandy. That's really nice. I am grateful that we were able to do anything during the pandemic. So, but yes, and I'm really looking forward to the next chapter, and grateful for Valerie to come on. And, I felt some of the same angst that I'm sure Lane did at one point, hoping that there would be somebody who was able and willing to step up. And so I'm very grateful for that. And I'm also very hopeful that my status on the commission will be able to continue in some form. And even if I'm not here as a commissioner moving forward, I will still be haunting you. So don't worry. You will all be seeing me very soon. So thanks. I wish you all the most amazing holiday, whether it's Hanukkah, Christmas, Yule, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. I hope you have some wonderful, warm, cozy time with all your family and friends. And we will look forward to seeing all of you in 2023. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Debbie, you hang on for 1 sec.